self-control. Gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She comes with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. That was all in one breath. And I did it. So welcome to the show, everybody. Hope you guys are doing great. Welcome to Hump Day's Eve. You're halfway through the week, over halfway through the week. This is like the big moment. You're on the way to the weekend. And remember, this weekend, special guest on Saturday, Mr. Duke Sullivan, joining us here on the portal. The madman behind World Bigfoot Radio will be here on the portal with us, and it should be a great time, great discussion. And on Friday night, we're going to do listener emails and stuff. So if you have an email you'd like to have submitted for that and shared for the show, please email us at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. So let's get on to it. I hope you're ready, because it's time for the portal to open. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are underway here. This is live and unscripted. Well, it's live if you're watching the live show, but if you're watching the YouTube on demand, then it was live. It's and I hope you guys enjoy the love that we bring every time we do the portal. But I'm not alone here tonight, ladies and gentlemen. My co-conspirator, partner in crime, and other half of the amazing duo that is the portal, Mr. Don Longbeard, is here.
Oh, boy. And just so you know, just before he hit the go button on the stream tonight, Mr. Brent said he's feeling spunky. So we'll see what that is. And shout out to MCAT. The bait is still alive.
He might be all that cough syrup I drank.
Oh, no. Spunky.
I'm spunky. I'm ready to go. It's these shows. Every time I can be just absolutely exhausted. And once showtime hits, it's just like, boom, let's go.
Let's do this.
Let's do it now.
The real Don, yes.
What?
I'm just reading the chats.
Oh,
sorry.
What are they saying? The real Don?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. He's here.
It's really real.
It
wow,
is.
Man.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Deb.
Hi, Deb. And ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what it is, but something about fudge just makes people think of us. It's a special kind of fudge, too. And I'm glad that we're inspiring
no.
thought all over the place.
I'm just glad people think about us.
Yeah, that's true. And we got a bunch of people today
goodness.
in so far, and more of you are coming in all the time. But Annette's here, Julia's here, Miss Blacktree, Deb's here, Diana Daniels Orcutt is here, Gemini Moon, Gentry Coda, Ian Hawks, John G, Lady Death, Lena Hickman, MCat, me, I'm here.
You're there.
Renee is here, and Sarah is here, and Ken is here, and Don is here. So awesome. Thank you guys. We love you. Thank you for joining us. And as more of you come in, we'll just be thrilled as hell because we love it when you guys come in and take part in the shows. You know, obviously, if you're new to the show, you know that our call-in line, even though you're seeing it on the screen, the number, don't call it unless you want to talk to our complaint department. That is the number for the complaint department. Except on Friday and Saturdays. And on Friday and Saturdays, the phone lines do work. So if you have something that you want to contribute to the show, do so in chat.
Yes.
And we'll keep an eye out for it as much as we can as we go. But tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to discuss some cryptids. And it seems like a lot of our shows lately have been about cryptids, which is cool. I mean, it's a subject that I absolutely am fascinated with. And I think it's really compelling to think that so many things exist around us and they're in our areas and they're in our neighborhoods, even in urban areas and stuff, and we they are largely unnoticed, I guess, or they choose to stay hidden and are able to stay hidden. What do you think of cryptids, Don?
I think they're more believable than, say, spirits and ghosts. Because to me,
you have just offended the ghosts.
I have to. Well, you know what? Maybe that ghost detector will work tonight.
Well, it does.
But I mean, because it's something tangible. Because they can leave physical evidence, a footprint. You cast a footprint or something. But beings as they're as elusive as they are. Then it's hard to. Deb says, "Watch it, Don."
I know, Deb. I was thinking the same thing. Like, oh man,
yeah,
we're
exactly.
in for it tonight now.
But I mean, it's a more believable thing to believe for me. This is just me.
Yes, it is because
preface that.
I don't have anything to do with what he's saying.
It's simpler for me to think that there's something out there that we haven't found yet because of let's just use the ocean. We don't know what all's in under the sea, under the sea. Anyhow, but so our land that we live on and that we cohabitate with supposedly these creatures, it's a lot easier for me to think that they run under the radar, as opposed to ghosts who avoid our ghost radar. So it's just one of those things. I'm more likely to believe in something like that. So.
I see that Taz just came in.
Hi, Taz.
Good to see all of you guys. It's so wonderful. I'm just thrilled when you guys come in. And John G. How you doing, John? Do we know John G?
Not that I know of.
Well, welcome to the show,
if he's
John.
joined us before or not. I'm not familiar with that name. But hello, thank you for joining.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming. And it's really cool to see the new faces pop up because it's like, yeah, people are hearing about the portal. People are discovering it. So really cool. Octopus. What is octopus?
Well, it's an octopus.
Huh?
I don't know. Oh. Julia brought it up. It's her fault.
I know. I was just looking up there, and suddenly there's the word octopus in chat, and I'm like, what? I think she's talking about in the sea. And,
under the sea, yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's a good point. And the funny thing is like a lot of the things that people believed were cryptids, like the giant octopus is a great example.
Right.
Julia, you're absolutely right. It was legendary.
Gotcha, yes.
There was discussion and legend and in maritime lore forever about these giant octopus, and everybody's like, whatever.
No.
And lo and behold, there's giant octopus. They've actually, or squid, giant squid anyway, that they've recovered actual carcasses.
Humboldt.
Huh?
Humboldts.
Humboldts?
Yeah, they're huge.
Is that what they're called?
Well, I don't know if that's what they're called, but that's the biggest one I know of.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. I don't know what
Like
kind of they are,
15, 20 feet.
but they're right, and that's a whole lot of octopus or
That's
squid or octopus or whatever they
That's
are.
a couple nights dinner.
Is that Humboldt octopus or a squid?
It's a squid.
Okay, a squid. Okay. Now that you say that, now that does sound familiar. I got to admit, I believe the Humboldt squid. I've heard of those. And I know that some of them can be absolutely aggressive. Even the smaller ones, like the smaller squid, have been known to attack divers and stuff and like try to pull their gear off. And so they can drown people very easily and aggressively and bite. They bite through wetsuits and stuff. It's horrible. But the idea that these things weren't out there, and it was all just a flight of fancy,
Right.
was forever. And then suddenly we see them and we know that they're there. We have, it's the old, we have a body, so now it exists. And I mean, really, that's like because when you look at it, let's look at the Bigfoot phenomena. There are hundreds and thousands of these casted prints. And many, there's many, or a good portion of them anyway, even have dermal ridges that have been, cataloged and measured and investigated, including by primatologists and stuff. I'm not just talking about Jeff Meldrum. I'm talking about, an FBI print investigator was able to go through and validate that, this is probably from a very real thing. And there's hair samples, and there's lots of different pieces of evidence about, let's say, Bigfoot.
Right.
And still, even with that much evidence, people just aren't willing to embrace the idea that it could be out there.
Right.
But I think that sentiment is growing, that they are there, because as more and more people are experiencing things, and as more and more people are coming forward and saying, "Look, I saw this, and I don't know what the hell to think about it, but it wasn't a man." And I think that as more and more people are doing that, and some of these people have this incredible laundry list of their accomplishments and achievements, and professionally or whatever. Judges have come forward, or I know of a judge that had come forward. I know doctors have come forward. There's biologists that have had encounters that have come forward and said, "Look, I didn't believe it, but there it was." I think there was one in Washington State that was doing some cataloging and field research, and he bumped into a Sasquatch. I mean, the real deal. And he said it was not a man. When it's
Right.
8+ feet tall, and it's got shoulders the size of a Buick.
Right.
Literally, they're just amazingly wide. I'm trying to figure out which way I got to go on camera, but okay, my shoulders are like right here, and that's, I don't know, I guess average. But you're talking about something that has shoulders that is like 4 and 5 feet wide. So that's
this freaking big.
I mean, it is literally a hairy,
Yeah.
Incredible Hulk looking thing. Some of these are. And of course, there's believed to be quite a difference between males and females. So like the Patty film, the Patterson-Gimlin film, that was a female. And still, even though it was a female, she was really pretty substantial as far as her size and her, her structure. But without a body, people aren't willing to, a lot of people aren't willing to.
Gotta have that empirical evidence.
Well, but but I think that there's enough evidence that it should at least warrant some serious investigation, other than people that are doing it on their own dime. However, there's also the belief, Don, and you've heard this many times, that the government does know. They know about these things. They know they're out there. They just don't want to acknowledge it for whatever reason. And then we get into the whys, and we can speculate on that all day long. But the phenomena is diverse. It's widespread. So the part that's maybe hard for some people to wrap their head around is that, okay, well, there might be a Sasquatch, but now you're saying there's dogmen, there's rakes, there's little people, big giants, there's this whole spectrum of things, Wendigo, so many different things. And how it's kind of like during the disclosure hearings. You and I have talked about this several times, and the disclosure hearings were great and fantastic, but I think Paul Hellyer took it a little too far when he got on there and said, after going through all these testimonies, and granted, he, being the former defense minister of Canada, it's quite a substantial title to be making those claims.
Right.
But he sat in front of these senators and people at the disclosure hearings.
A couple hundred people.
Yeah, and which was, being well documented in many levels. And then he talks about how many types of aliens are here living among us, and I think that was too much. Oh, what? MCAT?
MCAT, you're awesome. Thank you. We could use a couple.
I think they want to get us drunk.
I need a chaser.
MCAT, thank you, brother. That's really sweet. You're an amazing guy. God.
I was thinking about him the other day, just kind of to digress a little bit. But for some reason, I was thinking of the movie Convoy.
Oh, yeah.
And Smoking the Bandit.
Yep.
And I was singing so I'm at work and I'm just kind of working along.
Down,
and
loaded up in trucking.
And I just started singing that, and I went, "That's MCAT." Convoy.
Yeah. Hey there, Rubber Ducky. This is Big Bear.
Hey, Big Ben, this is Rubber Duck. I'm going to put the hammer down. 10-4. Sorry. Anyhow.
Oh my God, there's a whole generation of people out there going, "What?
What the hell are they talking about?"
I think they're going, "I think Don just had a stroke."
Oh wow.
God.
So anyhow, I'm sorry.
No,
Anyhow.
that's wonderful. But thank you, MCAT. That will go a long way into making our portal dreams come true. And, some of those we can share with you. I'm just kidding. There's no creepy portal dreams that we have altruistic endeavors that we're trying to undertake, and certainly contributions like that go a long way. And brother, you've given us a lot. Thank you so much. I love you. That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. But let's see. I'm just like,
sorry.
I love when those come through because
Totally
it was just
derailed you though.
I know it did. I actually had a train of thought, believe it or not, but I just saw that big orange come up. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it was distracting, but it was a good distraction.
I thought we disconnected or something. Like, what?
But you were talking about empirical evidence and
well, it's the body idea, right? So,
right.
But
habeas corpus.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. So I mean, it is, and the body principle is real strong, and it's undeniable. But now if they are out there, and I believe they are. I've had a Sasquatch experience of my own, and I've shared it before, so I don't want to keep sharing it over and over at different parts of the show. If you want to hear about it, just let me know in the chat, and I'll go over it again. But there is a bedtime stories. I think I went over it there. In the bedtime stories from beyond, where I think it was a walk in my shoes or something I titled it. So if you look through the archives on YouTube, you can hear more about a few of my paranormal experiences. But having had that experience, for me, it's I believe they're there. I believe that my encounter couldn't have been faked. It couldn't have been some goofy thing, because I had somebody with me when it happened, which was the big thing, because it's easy to dismiss things afterwards, But, as these things come out and as more people get on the idea that they could be out there, it either creates a good thing or a bad thing. In that, I think we were talking with Kat, or was it Linda? No, I think it was Kat, that I think people have the tendency to destroy what they love,
Yeah.
So if for instance it did come out, yep, Bigfoot's there, science acknowledges it, it's out there, all of a sudden you're going to get thousands and tens of thousands of people going to look for Bigfoot.
Right. Yeah. We've talked about it a couple times, but most recently Cat. Yeah.
Yeah. But and the ramifications of that to those areas that they may reside, I think would be catastrophic. I think it would be absolutely devastating if tens of thousands of people suddenly, pile into a specific area where one was proven to be. I mean and it would just devastate ecosystems,
Right.
I think.
Yeah.
And then the idea that people would want one in the zoo so they could bring, their nephew over to see what a Sasquatch looks like, and how heartbreaking that would be, to see this amazing being just locked in an enclosure, and just so we can go stare at it. And to me that would be the horrible part about it. But the good part of it is that maybe it would validate a lot of people that have been really breaking their back to do the research, get the evidence, and try to raise the awareness of this.
Right.
So I don't know. We're going to get into this kind of stuff tonight, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to discuss the rake a little bit because we had a comment on one of our actually it was the episode that Shell was on, Shell Dion, and she mentioned her rake story, and there was a comment that somebody really liked that, and they said it's they'd love to hear more about it. And the problem with the rake is there isn't a lot out there about it. There's a lot of ideas,
Conjecture.
a lot of conjecture, a lot of people, really unable to discuss it at length, I don't think, because I don't know of any evidence that's been gathered in terms of a rake. As I understand it, they're about our size. And they are running around basically naked, and like they're these bald, spidery-looking people, but I think they have feet. So if they left footprints, somebody would just think it was a person running around without shoes on. I mean, it would be hard to substantiate, let's say, footprints. As it's easy to recognize a Sasquatch footprint because it's so much bigger than our foot.
Yeah.
It's like you're not going to confuse that and go, I wonder if that was the homeowner here walking around in his lawn.
Right.
Well, unless he has 20-inch feet, probably not, and leaves an impression that's like 2 or 3 times deeper into the substrate with the weight of the impression, with dermal ridges and all that. So
Right.
I think Jeffrey Meldrum said it really, really well. He's like, you look at the complexity of these castings, and he said, and I'm paraphrasing what he said, but he basically said that if somebody was to fake this, they could be filthy rich working in the artificial limb profession, creating
Right.
legs and feet for amputees, because he said the mechanics, the way it moves the soil as it moves over the soil, he said it's a flexible thing. It's not this block.
Right.
And he can prove that because of the displacement of the soil and such as it made in the casting. And, if somebody is faking these things, they're wasting their time creating a hoax when they could be, filthy rich making, making fake hands for people that lost theirs.
Prosthetics,
Prosthetics.
Exactly.
Thank you. That's the word I could not remember at all. So I think this stuff is absolutely fascinating. And, we kind of live in Bigfoot Central up here, Don.
No, you don't say.
But, as we've learned more and more, and as we hear more and more, there doesn't seem to be any one location.
No. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
No, because I'm from the Olympic Peninsula of Washington, which is like very northwest. In the
That's
United
about as
States. You can't get
northwest
any,
as you get.
I lived in the northwest, northwest corner of the Pacific Ocean. I was like 100 miles from the border on that sense, but so we grew up with there's a Bigfoot on Beacon Hill, and this, that, and the other thing, and no, there's really no Bigfoot on Beacon Hill, because I've been all over Beacon Hill and fell off it many times. And but anyhow, the point is they're everywhere. I mean, we've got Yowie down in Ken and Matthews area, in Arizona, and then we've got the Yetis, and we've got Grassmen. We've got.
You said Arizona.
Did I say Arizona? Did I say Arizona?
You said Matthew and Ken in Arizona.
Oh, I meant Aussie land.
Australia.
Aussie land.
Yeah.
And then we've got the Sasquatch and Bigfoot over here in the Pacific Northwest, and the boogers down in Georgia and eastern Texas and all that. So I mean, but it's that one unifying term. We've talked about this several times as well. Is they're all related some way in this sense. All those names, because we came up to it with a common vocabulary, a common term,
right.
And that would be Sasquatch or Bigfoot. And when you say that, you think of all these other things,
right.
Momo. You think about all these different,
the AKAs,
all the other knowns as. It's definitely a hotbed for that kind of. We definitely live in a hotbed, especially with the little investigation we did up north here just a little bit. It was 2 Octobers ago,
right?
And because we really do believe that that's quite possibly a Bigfoot hide that we had those pictures of when we went and visited, and we had our friend Cindy Goodbreak out there and Glenn Meyer with us, and
Yep.
so it's just amazing, that I do believe there's something out there like it, and it's all over, it's everywhere. Urine attacks and
Mhm.
the Yetis, and it's amazing to think about it.
So would you say that you're skeptical of things like Bigfoot, or is it more the spiritual stuff that you're
It's more the
skeptical?
spiritual stuff because, like I said, there's more
Yeah.
of a tangible, reasonable, scientifically provable. It's you can, if we had solid DNA of some type, whether it be a hair follicle or scat or anything, then it could be scienced out and say, no, this is something we've never seen before, as opposed to a ghost. You can't capture
Plasm.
ectomist, actually, is what it's called, because ectoplasm is fake. But anyhow,
Ecto mist.
um, but because we're talking about an actual creature, an animal, a being, of some type. I said being
I
of
heard
some
you.
type.
I heard you.
So yeah, I'm less skeptical about Bigfoot. I'm more skeptical about a rake because they seem more fantastical.
Mm-hmm.
I could go with the Ahul or the Ropin. I can believe that.
Mm-hmm.
I could even still believe that there's, dinosaurs, plesiosaurs, Champ, Nessie,
Yep.
what's the one up in Okopogo? Not Okopogo, but there's a lake just up in Canada.
Yeah. Well, God,
I forgot the name of it. But anyhow,
I know what
I
you're
can
talking about.
believe those. I can believe that. That's
Mm-hmm.
something that's been on the verge of being proven
Mm-hmm.
just simply by the science and DNA of what we've had before, of what's been on the face of the earth before. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And we know that many species have been here, and we have never seen as well. And
Right.
and new species are being discovered. I think they just discovered a whole new orangutan.
That's surprising.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not a small thing. But they found a whole new kind, and it wasn't too long ago. Jane Goodall discovered the bonobo chimpanzee, which is a whole different line. And so there is discovery still happening. Now, in those cases, it could have been just a dismissal, like, oh, that's an orangutan. Well, it's not the same as the other ones at all. And, oh, that's a chimp. It's a little bizarre, but it's a chimp. And so perhaps they had been observed before, but were just dismissed as that's a chimpanzee.
Honestly, I have to say this. So I looked up lake monsters. I'm Googling lake monsters, and the first thing that pops up is a minor league baseball team from Vermont. I'm like, what?
That makes sense, I'm sure.
Oh, gracious.
Somewhere.
So I'm sorry, but
No, don't apologize. I just think there's definitely things to be learnt out there, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot going on, and through the course of doing the portal, we've all been lucky enough to hear a lot of different inputs on this, and I think it's really encouraging that so many people have these ideas and are having these discussions, because as long as it's not in a situation where it's just denied outright,
right.
then if people are willing to entertain the idea, then at least there's some progress can be made. Now, I will say this on the other side of it, and this is me kind of going on an offshoot here, but one of the biggest problems to any serious research in these fields is all the infighting.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
There is so much infighting in the Bigfoot community alone.
Yep.
And people just attacking each other, and other people. There's a lot of claims going on out there, and I don't pretend to know. I'm an enthusiast, like I've told you guys for a long time. I'm not an expert.
Right.
I'm an enthusiast, and I think I have pretty clear ideas in my mind of what some of these things are, but I don't go around just because somebody has a differing viewpoint and say, oh, they're full of crap. And it's kind of the internet's mentality that's really perpetuating that, because everybody can sit back with their keyboard muscles and flex all day long and talk about
keyboard warriors.
And but it's also very problematic, because whether or not you believe somebody else's approach, it's entirely up to you, and that's fine. But it doesn't create any sharing of information or knowledge
Right.
if everybody that comes forward just gets brutalized.
Right.
I've seen some pretty incredible pictures presented, and I can't know the whole story behind them,
But you can't discount them 100%
but I can't
either.
discount them. But I see so many people doing that.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing that very thing. They're like, oh, that's so fake. Oh, whatever. That's just BS. And it's a blob squatch, and a lot of times they are blob squatches.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but the point is that how much evidence is out there that people are absolutely terrified to bring forward just because they don't want to go through the hazing that comes with it.
Right. Well, MCAT said it just a second ago in chat. He says the same thing happens in the paranormal community. Well, what I have to say to that is that isn't it interesting how within the cryptid communities and the paranormal communities, isn't it interesting because there is always two sides and they're always fighting. It's this duality.
Right.
But it also happened in the truth movement.
Yeah.
You've got the people who believe the earth is round and you've got the people who believe the earth is flat.
Yeah.
This is the big one, but there's others, but that's the big one that's out there.
Well, even climate, when
Yeah,
you're talking
exactly,
about climates,
yes.
there's the deniers and then there's the decriers.
Right.
It's climate's going to hell.
Well,
no, it's not.
But once again, we come down to okay, for me, the flat earth, round earth is immaterial.
Right.
Immaterial. It doesn't matter to me. The only thing, if in this case, the only thing is if the earth is flat, then we've wasted a lot of money with NASA. That's the only thing I could think of that would make a difference to me.
Sure.
But to get back to Bigfoot,
well,
yeah,
cryptids.
you can. Well, cryptids, yeah, in anything, I mean, yeah, okay, that might have been a blob Bigfoot, or you may be suffering from pareidolia because you looked out there. I mean, I've done it before. I've looked out. I was down by my lower creek, and I looked back into the forest. It was getting on to sunset, and there's shadows. I mean, yeah, you can see. I can look up at the roof and see, faces in the paint, or. And I've done it, well, yeah, especially a couple of states I've been in, altered states I've been in,
Yeah.
So, I mean, so it's not necessarily pareidolia, but it's what the mind tells you see. So you've got the people that are decrying pareidolia, and you've got the people that are crying fact,
Right.
And it's an attack. It's a constant on attack, no matter what you do.
Right.
Whether you're you're skeptical of Bigfoot, or you're a believer, or you believe in ghosts, or you don't, or poltergeists aren't real. They're just, telekinetic powers that a person has. But then you just admitted that there's paranormal stuff in the world, but you're right. There's always a left and right. There's always a duality. And we are, in all of these cases, our biggest critics, our biggest discreditors, because we have to get together, or we have to learn how to, live with each other and say, okay, I disagree with you, but that's my opinion, and that's as far as we go.
Sure.
And you're absolutely right. It happens in the cryptid community. MCAT's right. It happens in the paranormal community. It happens no matter where you are. There's always a duality, and there's always going to be a fight.
Right. Well, that's just it. And I think the biggest problem is that there's just nobody talking. And I think MCAT said it right. It's just, I think he said I think the best way to move forward is to hash out what we actually believe as paranormal research, and the best way to do that is through long-form panel discussions.
Right.
And it is, but I think the biggest problem in any of this is that as soon as people draw sides, then they just want to be right.
Right.
And and then there's the other side is in that there is a plethora of people coming forward with these claims and pictures where it's just shrubbery and it's just leaves, and they're like, you can't see the face. It's like,
well, yeah,
no.
Well,
here, I'll circle it for you.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and it's like, well, that to me is a branch, and it turns. Your proof can't be a Rorschach ink test. You can't qualify a Rorschach ink test as proof. It has to either be crystal clear, or you can come forward with maybe less than pristine pictures and explain what you believe is there, but don't get upset when somebody else doesn't see it the same way.
Right.
It's like, no, you're wrong. You're just full of, and it's like, wow. So no progress can be made as long as there's no real dialogue happening. And I agree with you, MCAT. I think you're right on the money there.
Yep, absolutely. And a perfect example, and the easiest example, is just simply say, look at the state of politics in the United States. Nobody can have a decent conversation because everybody's right, whether it's from their point of view or their opinion, or if it's because they vehemently deny whatever you say can be true.
Yeah, because it's so easy to rebrand somebody like, oh, you're a racist, you're a fascist, and then if you're a liberal, you're a snowflake. No, I think, honest to God, and I don't ever get political on the show, but one of the things that occurs to me is right now, with a lot of people that are really attacking the president. Mm-hmm. I mean, my God, he could cure cancer tomorrow, and people would bitch because there's doctors out of work.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, I mean, nobody's wrong all the time, and they're not wrong all the time. I mean, he's whatever. I mean, I don't want to get into a political discussion for the merit of the show, but I don't know. It's just you're right, and this is
vitriol.
It's epidemic everywhere, and it doesn't just have to do with the Bigfoot community, but we certainly see it a lot in the paranormal communities, just as we see it everywhere else. But it's like, I think one of the biggest things in our new society, which is internet based, I just think we've lost the ability to constructively communicate. It doesn't really happen.
No, and a lot of it in that sense has to do with emoting, to be able to emote in text and understand somebody's inflections. You can't because it's all in text,
right?
Unless sarcasm, or preface it, or
winky
whatever.
Face.
Yeah, winky face.
If it's a winky face, everything is fine.
It's okay. I put a winky face up there.
I put a winky face up there. It's fine. Or just saying.
LOL. Just kidding.
You're really a pig, just saying.
Just saying.
Oh, he said just saying. It's fine.
It's all
I'm
right.
not going to get upset with that.
And that's a lot of it, and you're right. There's a lot of keyboard warriors out there that are just, and as a matter of fact, before we started the show, I saw something about they've been releasing those beta YouTube videos about what they're trying to do and things like that. And they were talking about dislike mobs. It's the same thing. Mobs of people, they get together, and it's just they go and dislike this because they disagree with it. Wow. So they get 30 or 40 of their friends together and go dislike this. Well, you know what? All that does is boost our ratings. So you go right ahead, mister.
Yeah, if it's an interaction, it just helps.
You go ahead and get us 40 dislikes. That just means that it's more of a conversation.
I don't know of anybody that's going to waste their time attacking us.
I don't.
First of all, if they ever come into the chat room and try to troll, I just
think
feel
they'd be
really
beat
sad
up.
for them. I just pity the fool that comes in here trying to raise some hell, because our chat room would chew them up. Our chat room would wreck some fools. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, Lord Vader, there is no spoon. I absolutely agree.
But there's a knife.
And it's usually in my back because I'm the bait.
So let's get into some stories.
Let's do this.
Some ideas. And sorry for the long monologue there, guys. I didn't intend for the show to just be a gripe session, and that I don't think it has been. But I think, there's not much we can do in the course of 2 hours to make all that right, but it is a problem. There is a problem out there about this, and so it also behooves us to discuss those things.
Knock it off.
Knock it off, everybody.
Knock it off.
Group hug. Group hug. Everybody, come on. Bring it in. Bring it in.
So, anyhow, what did you want to start it off with tonight?
Well, I'd like to discuss some big feet and...
Big feet.
And I want to discuss everything, but I got this cool site, and this is just a sampling around the country, and I'm sorry for our international friends. I will look for some Yowie stuff as well.
Oh, I posted something about a Yowie earlier today.
Well, then just find it.
Yeah, let me find it.
Bring it up to the panel. But there's, and I think this is all linked to the BFRO, which of course is a public forum of reporting, and BFRO is the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization or something like that. And it was founded by Matt Moneymaker of Finding Bigfoot fame. And
They never found him.
well, they you know what? But they did make a discussion possible.
That's true.
I really believe that show did a hell of a lot in just encouraging people to have the dialogue, and it made it okay, because the other part of cryptids and any paranormal thing is just the ostracization that goes along with coming out about an encounter. And you got to be a pretty brave soul to be willing to brave that. But shows like Finding Bigfoot, they did make that more mainstream, and they made it okay for people to come out and say, well, this is what I saw, and it wasn't such a scary thing anymore. So let's see, where should we start in our journey around the nation here to discuss some Bigfoot sightings? And these are just sighting reports as taken from, I believe, the BFRO. So let me find a few here. Let's see. Let's start in God, let's see what this one is in Butte, Montana. Is Butte, Montana?
Oh, yeah,
right?
Butte's in Montana. Yeah, that's
So this one goes way back. Oh, this is Butte County, California, rather.
Butte County. Okay.
Okay, so it says, and these are just encounters. They're not firsthand accounts or written for sensationalism, and it just tells what happened. So it says Charles Jackson and his son Kevin got the shock of their lives on an afternoon of July 12th, 1969. They were at their home in Cherokee Road in Oroville, well southeast of Bluff Creek, which is also the sighting of the Patterson film, Patterson Gimlin film, Bluff Creek, but not very far from the Plumas National Forest. Father and son were working peacefully in their backyard, burning rabbit entrails, which I guess is a good bonding thing. I don't know. When a huge ape-like creature loped out of the woods and stopped to stare at them. The beast was seen 7 to 8 feet tall and had large breasts and was covered in 3-inch long gray hair, except on its hands and face. The Jacksons, only 15 feet away at the time, said that after it spotted them, it walked up to the outhouse, looked around, and suddenly ran back in the woods. Another Cherokee Road resident had a run-in with an ape man around the same time as the Jackson incident. For weeks, Homer Stickley's farm had been haunted by something that screamed in the woods at night and stole apples from his trees. One moonlit night, Stickley saw the culprit, a tall, hirsute, 2-legged creature that walked through a nearby meadow, pausing to stand by a stump. By September, at least a dozen people had reported giant ape-like things running around Oroville, but the Cherokee Road sightings remained the most documented and credible of the lot. 6 years later, people were still seeing the beasts and finding their huge footprints in the area, but the creature remained at large. By then, Oroville had established itself as another home of North America's most famous land monster, the Bigfoot. And so there you have it. I mean, and the funny thing about the accounts like that is, and this happens a lot in Bigfoot sightings, is we think of them as these, really intelligent things that, and maybe they are, and I'm not saying that they're not, but we think of them as always aware of their surroundings and stuff. But this just seems like an oh no kind of moment, like just loped out of the woods and was like, oh. So I think they're maybe more human than we thought.
Right, yeah. Yeah, nobody's perfect, and we can't, expect Bigfoot to be either.
Right.
He's got to have the special kids.
But the funny thing is about this, and this is what's curious to me, is that these are apparently pretty skittish beings, that they avoid us, and they very actively avoid people. But sometimes it's just like, I don't know, I don't care, I'm walking through here, and they don't run. They just are observed, kind of just walking, looking over their shoulder and checking things out. Yeah, moseying. It's like they're not stressed. They're not no anxiety. They're just like owning it.
Right. Yeah, if you're gonna do it, you might as well own it. Yep.
Well, you know what I mean, though, and that's what I find really curious is what is happening. That they're not worried, and then if they're so carefree, why don't we see them more often? So that's kind of a conundrum in my
Right.
head, I guess, in considering these things. But that's the first one, and I think it was a good one. I liked it. I like that one. Don,
Yes, it was good.
you enjoyed it? Good?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, here's one that goes all the way back to 1948, and this is
Ooh.
kind of cool. And the reason why is because a lot of people, a lot of skeptics, claim that the whole Bigfoot thing kind of started in what was it, 67?
67 with the Gimlin.
Yeah, the Patterson Gimlin in
Patty.
67, and a lot of people believe that just prior to that, of course, people were finding and documenting, and just prior to that, by not more than a few years, I think, was the first penning of the name Bigfoot, and it was in a newspaper, and it was based on the fact that they found these big tracks around this logging camp, and it's also alleged that one of the guys that found them was a big prankster, so people weren't really sure what to think of it. But they did report it on it in the newspaper, and they casted it, I think, as well. But most skeptics say that that's kind of where it started, and then just other people ran with it, and it's just been this long running joke. But then you find reports from the 1800s, and you find things that predate that by a long period. There's been, but they used to refer to them as wild men.
Right.
The wild man sighting in Missouri and stuff like that. So that was prior to there being a Bigfoot name or people being aware of a native term that we understand as Sasquatch, even though I think that that's actually a bastardization of the actual native term.
Right.
But it was somebody's mistake, so it became Sasquatch. But anyway, let's see what this one is, and it comes out of it's Calaveras County in California, near Lake Comanche, Wallace, California, in 1948. Excuse me. A little bit froggy. 1970s veteran researcher Mike Dardanos, a fish originally from Los Banos, California, told me about a story he was given in 1968 that occurred in Calaveras County, California, around 1948. The story involved teenagers who were fooling around shooting off their Daisy rifles and Red Ryder BB guns near Lake Comanche in Wallace, California. The 6 of them were led by a former commercial fisherman named Dixon, and he was an uncle of one of the boys who took them out to teach them proper rifle etiquette. During a break for lunch, the 68-year-old Dixon caught wind of a really foul smell. And at first he thought his thermos had gone rank on him, but smelling again more closely, the coffee was fine. By then, the boys smelled the odor in the air and thought it might be a dead animal, and curious as growing boys are, after lunch, they took off to investigate the smell. Towards the center of the lake on the north side, they found a rotting corpse, but only some parts of it. What was left of it lay sprawled on the bank, with the right half of the pelvis gone. Toning down Dardanos' graphic remarks a little, he said, maggots had decimated most of the remaining corpse, and a cloud of black flies were thick over the large foot, which had partially rotten in a puffy white in the water. The left leg and left buttocks were completely covered in black hair, about 1 to 4 inches long, but nothing else was around the area to be found of the rest of the body. They figured what was left of the male genitalia was probably pulled off and eaten by coyotes, and none of them have heard of the abominable snowman, and they thought it was probably a local vagrant who lived in the hills. Dardanos, after hearing the tale of a hair-covered torso, went ahead and made a note of possibly dead Sasquatch found near Lake Comanche and located west of Camp Seco, but south of Comanche Village in Central California around 1948. So apparently they might have found a corpse, but it doesn't sound like there was a whole lot of it left, but the foot and one half of the pelvis and leg, I assume.
That could give you enough.
Right. I mean, it looked like a foot of a human, with the same shape, but it was obviously much bigger. Sorry.
Well, it and I think it's interesting, but when Bigfoot die when Sasquatches die,
Mm-hmm.
aren't they usually, well, unless they're by themselves, unless they're a rogue or an outcast, whichever you prefer. But aren't they usually spirited away by other of their troop or their tribe and clan, whatever that may be? That's something I've got to get figured out too. I've got to ask somebody about that. What's
Right.
the proper terminology? Family, whatever that may be.
Oh, yeah.
Anyhow, but that would, to me, with this understanding, that would have been a rogue. But you would think that somebody would know. One of his other ex clan would know, but maybe they just don't care. I mean, you're an outcast.
Maybe.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
it's hard to know. I mean, and there's a lot of theories going around about what happens to these things when they die. And now there's allegedly a report by a park ranger, and it's apocryphal at best. I haven't ever heard it substantiated, but he alleges that he watched a group of Bigfoot carrying another one
Mm-hmm.
and burying it,
Mm-hmm.
and observed from a distance through binoculars the whole burying, quote unquote ceremony.
Right.
Now, other people are trying to say, and maybe they're right, I don't know, but they've made the claim that when a Bigfoot dies, the rest of the family group will consume it.
Oh, well, yeah.
And so there isn't anything left,
Right.
including grinding the bones down to powder and all of that. So
That is some civilized. That's some shows real civilization to them, though. I mean, to be able
culture,
to.
anyway.
Well, yeah, culture. That's a better way. It because it shows that they're aware enough to get rid of whatever the evidence may be left lying around. And it really speaks to their own kind of spirituality.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, or at least the way they believe. Let me say that.
Yeah.
So
and
that's interesting.
lady in the chat said maybe they're bad Bigfoot like bad people, and maybe use the death penalty
Oh.
in all seriousness, and that's possible. And I've heard that claim before, and I know Kat made that claim as well.
Well, and
That
somebody
there
else
are
said something about that too. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, but that there are some what am I trying to say, some offenses that they can do, just very few, but if they do, it's like a death penalty, and one of which is killing their own kind.
Right.
And the others, I don't know what they were, and I don't think Kat ever directly told
Yeah.
us what it was, but that was the indication, was that there were some things that were just absolutely forbidden,
Unforgivable, yeah.
unforgivable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so I don't know if it's always a death penalty, or if it's just you're on your own. You don't.
Banishment, yeah.
Which when you're thinking of anything, surviving alone is incredibly tough for any creature living in the wilds.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not easy for human beings either. I mean,
We're not even in the wild.
yeah, but when you're thinking of, you need successful hunts,
Mm-hmm.
you can't get injured, because if you do, you can't hunt. You may be able to gather, but
And you don't have anybody to help care for you.
right, you don't have anybody to watch your back when you're sleeping and stuff like that. And with the family groups, allegedly with the Bigfoot anyway, and I don't know enough about the Dogman to have any opinion of this. But there's the idea that there are watchers. So there's, they generally sleep during the day and are up nocturnally. But during that daytime period, there are designated watchers who take positions around the family group and watch over them
Right.
during their time of rest. And I don't know what they do when it comes nighttime, or if they maybe stay up for more than 24 hours at a time just taking their shift or whatever. But
It's a long freaking shift.
right. Well, I mean, so do they then sleep at the night while the other ones go out and do their
Right.
thing? I don't know. I would think that they probably, just some of them don't sleep one night, and while the others do, and then the next night they'll get to sleep, but some other ones will have to stay awake. Maybe it's like that. I don't know.
A graveyard shift.
Right. Yeah. Who drew the short straw?
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's an interesting question, though. I mean, because, how, and MCAT said that he wonders about how the family's structured and things like that, as well, and so, how somebody has told us, I think it was Cindy, has mentioned rogues before.
Yep.
The ones that have been ostracized or kicked out or banished, or
Sure.
you know, yeah, you can roll with us, but you got to take care of yourself. Whatever that is, that permanent bachelor kind of thing. I don't know,
Right.
but anyhow, and so and what are those offenses that get you banished, or why do you become rogue, or do they leave because they don't agree with something that happened with a decision? I mean, is it a political situation? I mean, they've got to have their own
Is it
politics in a sense
is it a
because
tribal thing? Yeah.
yeah, so it's a lot of questions about them.
And I've heard many different variations of that same thing. Like, what does the groups look like?
Hmm.
And generally, what I've heard is that it's usually an alpha male and an alpha female, and then their offspring.
Hmm.
And there might be other other individuals that are adult as well with that group.
Right.
But there's the chief and the what would the female chief be called? I don't
Big
have a term.
Mama. But no, you'd alpha. I think alpha female.
I
Pretty
think
much.
she's called ma'am because you can call her anything else. No, but and then I've heard other things where
Right.
they're talking about groups of a dozen
Mhm.
together that may not have been a family group, but they're gathered together. So
Right.
I
Right.
don't know. And
Well,
again,
I think that would be more of a clan at that point, though,
it would seem, yeah,
Yeah.
it would definitely seem so.
or tribe, clan, tribe. Yeah.
Right. So very strange. And I don't know enough about the dogman / wolf people and how they are organized in all of this. Now I've heard with that whole situation, I've heard variations there that they are like in territorial
Hmm.
regions alongside of Sasquatch, but they don't really mix. And then I've heard the other thing where they are, tolerant of each other and kind of live around each other. And then I don't know. I know that it seems, in terms of dogmen, it seems that their habitat is really much more closely aligned with waterways,
Right.
and they definitely stay near water at all times. More so than the Bigfoot / Sasquatch. I don't know what it is about their physiology that makes them stay near water, but they seem to travel always around waterways for the dogmen
Right.
and / wolf people. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I know Linda Godfrey has mentioned that. Shell Dion has mentioned that. So from both of them, I would definitely regard it as probably
Good information.
pretty possible at that
Right.
point. But yeah, Linda, in all of her research, of course, she's very methodical and very organized with this, and she made that observation that
Right.
waterways are always right near wherever dogman sightings are. So then you get into other fringe ones, like these, other things like the rake, for instance. And honestly, we just don't know anything about them.
Yep.
I mean, they're these, and ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't heard of a term like of the rake, they are essentially these, I don't know, spidery thin beings that look like bald people, and they aren't clothed. They're just kind of running around. And now, if you look on the internet, there's lots of famous pictures going around of what the rake is. But it looks like this creepy little thing. It kind of looks like a Smeagol. What is it?
Gollum and Schmeagol. Yeah.
Gollum, Smeagol, different names of the same thing, but it kind of looks like that, except man-sized, and but bald and hairless, clothless, but they kind of crawl around the same way in what I've heard of their descriptions. But I got a couple of stories of the rake pulled up, and I don't know. Honest to God, I have no idea whether they're at all credible or just creative writing, because when it comes to the rake, it's so hard to find anything worth mentioning with them, or any kind of encounter stories, because the encounters are so incredibly rare. Now, as what Shell was saying about them is that they are these incredibly aggressive, horrible things, and she said that she'd much rather meet a dogman
Right.
way more so than she'd want to meet another rake, because she had an encounter with one. And if they are absolutely that horrible, and it seems they are, but if they are, I hope I never do see them.
Yeah, no
But
doubt.
you think about it, so why are there so few sightings? Well, maybe the rake is just that much more lethal and doesn't care. So that
Yeah, so
anything that sees it,
there's no victims left alive.
right, there's no witnesses because whatever saw it was probably on the menu, you know? And that's a creepy feeling. But you think about the missing 411 stories
Right.
and, the other missing people in and around cities and in rural areas, they just kind of disappear. And what if it was some of these were the rake? And that's why there's so few stories, is that there's nobody left alive to talk about it, or very few.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know if that could be it or not, but I certainly am curious about it. And it's concerning, but I can't even tell you, honest to God, where they're sighted most. I really know that little about them. But a lot of people believe that the rake is also one of the origins for the legend of the Slender Man.
Mm.
That it could possibly be inspired by the story of the rake in some way. But again, I don't know. Very strange. But let's get back into some more of these Squatch reports, because I got tons of them. Right, Don?
You do. You have a whole great list right there, and you've already read that one. So go to the next one.
Yeah, I know. I knew I read it. I was just hearing you type, so I thought I'd talk to you. Put you on the spot. Sorry.
No, yeah, but no, I mean that's a huge list. There's gotta be
It
some
is.
more.
Well, there's tons in here. Yeah. I'm just looking for which one I want to read next, because it's like having a pile and you can only pick a handful of them. So I'm just browsing through the list.
It's like doing a drawing. You got 150,000 tickets in there, and you can only
Right.
pull one out.
Right. I want to get out of California, though. We've done enough of those. So, here's Canada. So, let's see, British Columbia. There's a couple right here. On British Columbia, Canada, which is in our neighborhood, just north of us, right, Don?
I'm sorry, where?
British Columbia.
BC? Yeah. They're just north of us. Yeah.
All right. So, this is in ours. Now, this should be a good one, actually, because it's a bow hunter story. And a lot of times bow hunters have the most incredible encounters with the Bigfoots and Sasquatch, because, they're kind of out there and being stealthy.
They're not being. Yeah. There's no.
Yeah. There's no big report
Yes.
when they take something down. So it's a very, very stealthy kind of hunting. And, they have to be stealthy and they have to be, quiet. Otherwise, they'll scare the prey away.
Right.
So bow hunters are probably the most skilled hunters out there, in my opinion.
Diana's going to love you for saying that.
But is she a bow hunter?
Yes.
Aha. Well, there you go, Diana. If you get out there and you see something, you got to let us know. All right, so let's look at this one. It says, I wrote this almost 25 years ago. I have no idea how many times it's been published since then, and I also have nothing more to add. I make no observations regarding the following. It was as I've written in August 23rd, 1960, and I've been out on my own for 6 months living by competing at rodeos. I was only 16 and had just finished a rodeo in Washington and had a couple hundred in my pocket, and 3 fellow hands asked me to go out with them on a canoe trip in BC, British Columbia, so to get their winter meat. And they were all BC natives. And he names them. I don't know if I need to do that. But he said they had lots of equipment and knew the area to the north and east of Risky Creek, Riske Creek, and they would launch the freighter canoes 20 foot long with 7.5 or 7.5 Evinrude kickers at a place near Horsley, east of Williams Lake, and go north and east from up there, a string of lakes and rivers. And we took 2 canoes with 35 gallons of spare gas, spare prop, and 100 shear pins. You got to have shear pins when you're going to have an outboard motor. Oh, man. I can't tell you how many times I popped the shear pin on an outboard in the fishing boat back home. But we had a tent in each canoe, and a rifle and shotgun, 2 fishing rods, 1 tackle box, bedrolls, and grub box. And we traveled light because we knew there would be portages, and since they were all natives, could shoot anything as we went. The word portage refers to the practice of carrying a canoe or other boats over land to avoid an obstacle on the water route, such as rapids or a waterfall. Excuse me. We had 20 pounds of flour, salt, pepper, tea, lard, pemmican, and tobacco to give to natives we encountered. The word for pemmican is a concentrated mixture of fat and protein used as a nutritious emergency foodstuff. It gives all the history of pemmican.
Wow.
But my friends were about 20 to 20 to 23 years old, and I was really the baby. The first 2 days were absolutely uneventful. We made good time and moved steadily up a series of lakes and creeks, and the first night we camped at an abandoned mine of some sort and dined on fresh fish and rice and beans. And day 2 of the stream got narrower and swifter, and we had 2 portages, and we made nearly 50 miles. Wow, that's moving. In our canoe, Jim and I, we had the Winchester Model 110 30-06 and my 12 gauge. Model 12 pump, ducks and geese were everywhere, and we had those for dinner. And the next night, fixed with some French name I can't recall, you pick them, rub them with lard and season them. A green branch is bent into a U and inserted in the cavity, and they are suspended over the coals. The best duck I ever ate. Sounds good. I'm getting hungry while reading this.
I'm fitting to get me some duck.
Yeah. On day 3, Kid and Earl in the lead canoe rounded a bend and shot a young moose about 600 pounds, and we spent 4 hours dressing and boning and caching the meat on an elevated platform. It froze every night. So we were at the base of a small lake as we were working. 3 canoes with natives came down the lake at full speed, and Kid waved them in, and there were 4 adult males and 2 maybe teenagers and 3 adult women and 1 girl of about 10. I assumed they were an extended family, and we gave them about 100 pounds of meat and some flour and tea and tobacco.
Dang.
That was really nice. Wow. They spoke no English, at least not in front of me, and I understand not one word, except twice when one of the women said, Sasquatch, and I laughed twice. At the time, I assumed she was making a joke for me. They left after smoking with us and given us 3 big whitefish and some pemmican. We took maybe 20 pounds of prime meat, caching the rest under the tarp and some bark, and the platform was standard cache for that area, about 12 feet off the ground, and we went on, still heading north and east, and we left the small lake and went through a chute into another lake and then east into a smaller river. This stream was maybe 40 to 60 feet wide and medium swift, and about seven, we started looking for a campsite and found one on the north bank in a bend in the river. The right bank was covered with boulders, round by glaciation and current, but left bank was clear with a flat area under some trees. We were all tired and hit the sack before full dark. It doesn't get dark there until tomorrow. It doesn't get dark there until tomorrow. I don't know what that means. Excuse me. Sometime, maybe 2 or 3 in the morning, Jim and I were awakened by a loud crash in the campsite. Thinking bear, we grabbed our guns and kicked back the tent flap. Nothing. Jim had a flashlight and turned it on, and Earl and Kid were now out in the tent and armed, out of the tent rather, and a boulder about the size and shape of a bowling ball had just destroyed our Dutch oven and part of our cook box. We stood around trying to sort things out when a second boulder hit Kid and Earl's tent dead center. It came straight down through the trees, and I was standing there open mouthed when both Kid and Jim grabbed me and Earl and drug us deeper into the trees. Naturally, there was a lot of discussion, but I won't relate the tenor of that. We spent the rest of the short night in a circle, back to back, safeties off. From time to time, we would hear some more rocks hit, and once, just once, some sort of strange hooting from the other side of the river. After good sunup, we slowly crept back to camp, and one tent was toast, as were the cook box and most of the cooking equipment. I counted 9 rocks ranging from the size of a bowling ball to a beach ball size.
Dang.
Good God, that's heavy. The largest weighing maybe 150 to 200 pounds. Fortunately, the canoes were undamaged, and we quickly pulled up camp and started out. We got to the meat cache that morning, and it was gone. Not destroyed, gone. Totally 100% gone. No logs, no rope, no meat, No carcass, and I have no opinion.
Mm-hmm.
We ran wide open going out and camped that night in the canoes in the middle of a lake. Jim and Kid are now dead, killed in a float plane crash some years ago. Earl, I don't know about. I'm certain of only 5 things regarding that trip. 1, those rocks were not on the bank where we pitched tent, and where we pitched camp, and we pitched camp. It says both times. And they were not carried into our camp. They were thrown.
Wow.
No human being did it. I have no desire to ever again go into that country. And number 5, I am not a believer or a skeptic, but I don't exactly discount much if which I don't understand. And as for the lack of scientific evidence, it is just in recent times that we have learned that Caucasoids lived in North America as long as 12,000 years ago. If our ancestors had not lived in villages with middens, they had roamed in groups of two or three. We might still not know about a Clovis woman or many of them. The worm midden refers to a very old refuse heaps that contain discarded materials, food remains, bones, etc. Midden is an Old English word for household rubbish dump. Try and throw a 150-pound boulder across a 50-foot stream. I saw it done, and I don't know what did it. So that story is from the Bow site, written by Bow Writer from 2008.
That's crazy, though. Yeah, and because, maybe, okay, if you're going to put food in a tree, 12 foot up, as they said, and nothing's going to be, so we're talking about a large animal who isn't interested in climbing trees in any way that we understand.
Who isn't interested?
Well, why would they climb trees? Because,
well, if it's 12 feet, they wouldn't have to, I guess.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, even if the Bigfoot was only, or whatever it was only 8 feet tall,
right,
it could still get up there with its arms,
But they are actually allegedly amazing climbers, like nearly like
I would imagine.
monkeys or.
I would imagine,
Yeah.
But no, that's fine. But no, I mean, because we don't have any. Well, I don't. Does it say where the story's from?
British Columbia.
Okay. So we don't have any large cats to really worry about. Maybe a bobcat could have done it, but they said they didn't find any evidence of that kind of thing.
Well, there's mountain lions up here.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. I mean.
But I mean, so anyhow, the point is, and then the large rocks being thrown, they're not even rocks; they're small boulders.
Yeah,
those
so
are small
if it's
boulders.
a basketball-sized rock,
Right?
And it was thrown over a 50-foot creek,
Yeah.
I mean that's freaking amazing,
Yeah.
and scary when you think of the strength
That's
that
like a
implies.
cannonball.
Right. I mean, if let's say if you had a basketball, how far could you throw it? I mean, maybe 10 feet, maybe 15 feet if you're really huge. I don't know. I mean, that's a huge rock, right? But this is talking about lobbing it unseen from a forest across a 50-foot stream with accuracy enough to smash tents and stuff.
Right.
So it's not like they were hitting that, and it sounds like they were hitting exactly what they wanted to hit. Now, ladies and gentlemen, pebble throwing and stuff is really commonly attributed to Sasquatch, and it's used usually as an intimidation technique. And essentially, they just make people nervous and uncomfortable, and people get out. And that's what they want. They want people out. Now, throwing a boulder is a whole different game. That's not just trying to intimidate you. That's like if you don't leave, you're dead. That's a whole different level of wow.
And that's when they said they sat around all night in a circle.
Right. Now, it's also believed that one of the reasons that they are such good hunters is that they can throw stones with complete accuracy and take down prey. So if they took a fist-sized rock and, chucked it at a deer, it's going to hit the deer in the head if they're accurate, and that's it. Game over.
Game over.
Right. Now,
Done.
they are also, good pack hunters. Like they will strategically have pushers, and then they'll have ambushers.
Right.
And they're known, they're alleged, I can't say known, but they're alleged to break the legs of the deer as they come by. And the deer will have a broken leg and will be, so they break all the legs of the ones they can catch quickly. And then they, of course, finish them off. But,
Right.
so, I mean, God.
Youch.
If they wanted you dead,
They're going to get you.
you'd be all kinds of dead.
Hey, did you know that this episode on YouTube is called Bedtime Stories from Beyond, Ghostly Visitations?
Oh, you think it ain't?
We are talking about visitations.
That's true. I forgot to rename it, didn't I? Let me do that
That's
quickly.
true.
You got something to read?
Yeah, actually, I found that Yowie report from,
Please.
it's from the Northern Star, which is down in Queensland, I believe, Australia. And this came out on January 26th, so it was just a few days ago.
Wow.
Let's see here. Yowie attacks Queensland driver. A driver who says a hulking Yowie thumped the bonnet of his truck has been plagued by nightmares and says spotting the creature was the worst experience of his life. The 53-year-old is told of a terrifying encounter with Australia's version of Bigfoot while driving through a bushy part of the Gold Coast hinterland last November. Okay, so this was written in January. Well, last November was still only a couple months ago. The truckie wants to be identified only as Gary, describing how he was forced to slam on the brakes when the creature emerged from the bush in broad daylight at Withron. He eyeballed the 3-meter-tall Yowie before it thumped the bonnet of his truck before melting into the dense forest.
What do you mean thumps?
Like thumped on it.
Oh, with his
thumped on
hand?
it,
Like,
yeah.
bonk. Okay.
Yeah. It was the worst thing that has ever happened to me, he told the bulletin. I tried to push it to the back of my head, and I think that was freaky. It just can't be real. I just couldn't get it out of my mind. I was having trouble sleeping at night. Gary said prior to his encounter, he had never believed in such a creature and was fearful of people's reactions to his story, including what his wife would make of it. In the end, she believed him, he said. It's an unfortunate coincidence that the dash cam on Gary's truck was being serviced that day.
Oh, no.
And he didn't manage to reach for his other camera in time.
Well, yeah.
There's the whole thing right there.
So,
The last thing lasting for 5 seconds, you're staring at a monster in the face, watching it make sure that it steps around you. You're scared for your life, not grabbing for your camera. Gary has driven on that road, has only driven on a different road. So he hasn't been on that road since he saw it. He says, I figured it was a 1 in a million thing. Lightning doesn't strike twice. On the other hand, I would like to see it with a camera just to prove it. So
wow.
there you go.
Now, that's the other complaint a lot of people have. Like, oh, there's cameras everywhere. Why aren't people getting pictures? If they're out there, why aren't there better pictures and more of them? It's like, you have to think about the scale of this creature, of this being. Just for Bigfoot, for instance. I mean, you think of 8 feet, and 8 feet, and these things are reported 10 feet and over. But 8 foot is basically, in a standard home, it's the distance from your floor to your ceiling. Now, you can imagine that being filled up, that space being filled up with the strongest ape-looking thing that's not happy to see you. And it's, it's huge.
Right.
And you don't know at that moment if you're dying or not.
Right.
I mean, that's like one of those moments that, it's a pivotal moment of whether or not you get to live longer. And people have all these ideas about, well, just grab your camera and,
Right.
get a picture. At that point, you're not thinking about, I want a picture so I can show my friends. You're thinking, am I going to live past this moment?
Right. Yeah.
And what do I do? I mean, you've got to be in such a state of panic and shock.
Right.
How do you process that?
Yeah, no doubt.
So,
and that's something that people don't consider though. But consider this. Every creature on the face of the earth has some kind of defense mechanism or way to discourage attacks. Squirrels. Do you know how squirrels and mongooses um, confront snakes and things like that,
Yeah.
what they do is they stick their tail up in the air, right? And they wave it as fast as they can because it makes their body signature look bigger than it actually is to a snake.
Mm.
And that's how mongoose do it too. They'll get that tail up there and they'll shake it, and it'll create in the vision of the serpent or the snake, it'll make it think it's bigger than it actually is. So my point is with Bigfoot, maybe they have a pheromone that they can excrete that causes either fight or flight.
Well, I mean, there's the infrasound, of course.
Infrasound, I was about to say that,
Yeah.
where you become stunned, or it may go the other way. But I mean, so when you're saying that, they should have grabbed their camera, you don't know what's being deployed against them naturally from
Right.
these things.
Right.
I mean, I'd be just scraping my underwear if I get through it. I may not have underwear when I get through it, but because so you can't really blame people for that, because
Yeah.
unless you've experienced it, you don't know what kind of a state of mind you're in. You don't know what they're they're going to feel.
It's a moment when for most of the people that encounter it, it's a moment when something that could not ever exist just stepped into being,
Right.
and it's pissed.
It's not supposed to be here.
It's like it's pissed and it's huge, and in that there's nothing you can do except sit there and wonder if you're gonna die screaming or if you're gonna die crying, or what are you gonna do?
Right.
That's about the only choice you have.
Squish them into jelly.
And it's not a time of rational thought. It's
No.
not like, ooh, I got to get a picture and show everybody. It's like, if it's far away, then you can try,
Right.
But if it's right up and close and personal, and the other problem is that they're usually never alone. You might see one, but there's 3 other ones that are around you, and they're ready to spring into action if they need to. So, yeah, it's a situation that it would be real easy for a lot of people
Right.
with no understanding of what that must be like
Right.
to be critical.
Well,
It's
and
like, wow.
even when we had Bear on the show, he talked about taking that film crew out there, and they said the only thing that they could film was the ground.
Right, and it ran right in front of them.
Yeah, ran right in front of them, and I wonder why that is. Because they saw something that's not supposed to be there,
They were,
and rational thought went right out the window.
And this is a film crew.
Yeah.
That's what their one job was. That's,
You had
that's
one
the meme.
job.
You had one job, and they filmed ground. That's all they filmed. So, I mean, it's an unrealistic expectation for 99% of the people to have any other response than, I'm going to die, and how am I going to die?
Right. Right.
How much is this going to hurt? That's about it. So, really, really easy for people to be critical of that. Now, there's one more out of British Columbia that I was going to read, and this one's a short one. And it says, the home of Harrison Sasquatch is reported to be in Mystery Valley in caves back of 20 Mile Bay, which stretches as far as the Chehalis Lake, with Lake Margaret in between. This is in British Columbia, Canada. In 1935, so the story goes, 2 hairy giants came leaping down the jagged rocky hillside of Morris Valley and strode across the duck feeding grounds with the agility of mountain goats. The giants walked with an easy gait across the swampy flats at the Morris Creek, straddled a floating log which they propelled with their hands and huge feet across the stream to the opposite side. Mr. Gustav Tifting, I guess Tyfting, of Agassiz, saw the footprints of a big hairy man sighted earlier, along with several others, which were followed across the garden and into the woods beyond where they lost the tracks. The footprints were 16 inches long, 8 inches across the ball of the foot, and 4 inches across the heel. 5 toes and no claw marks. The distance between the footprints was at least 4 feet between toe and heel.
Wow.
That's a huge stride. And all across the potato patch, about 2 inches deep into the wet ground, and they were the shape of a human foot. 2 prospectors returned to Harrison Hot Springs in June 1957 from a trip into the wilds of Harrison Mountains and told of sighting a huge creature on Spuzum Glacier 30 to 35 miles northeast of Harrison, and it had quite a human appearance, and so the stories go. So, I mean, that's pretty amazing.
That's incredible. He pays a lot for his shoes.
Well,
8 feet across the and 4 across the heel.
yeah, 8
That's
across.
insane.
Yeah, that's a big wide foot. But the key point in there, I think, is just the talk of how they traverse this rocky cliff like a mountain goat.
Yeah.
And if you've ever watched a mountain goat go up those cliff sides, it is. It's just like, oh my God, how is it not falling? It's got these little pegs that it's doing it on, but they just run up and down those things like nothing. And to know that this big, huge, hairy thing that has superhuman strength and superhuman agility also can scale impossible terrain like that with no problem. I mean, the most normal things you would think is, I want to get high. I want to get high off the ground.
Please qualify that.
I want to feel nothing. No. I mean, like, you want to get off the ground. You want to get to an elevated position because there's something big that wants to kill you. Well, they can climb it so much better than you can.
They'll get there. They'll get to the top before you do.
Well, they'll get up there and, throw you down probably. So you just got farther to fall. And I don't know. That's just one of those things. That's why I say that if indeed they wanted to hurt us, we would be absolutely helpless.
Yep.
To stop it. Mm-hmm. We couldn't, you can't really reason with it. You can't really, outmaneuver it.
Right.
You can't outrun it. You can't outclimb it. You can't outswim it. I mean, these things are going to get you if they want to. But now the amazing thing is that they obviously don't want to, because otherwise we wouldn't have this many stories of people seeing them.
Right.
It'd be like, oh, there's people. Let's go get rid of the witnesses.
No doubt.
And it would just be a walk in the park for them.
Right.
What?
No, I just found this. It's supposedly a 13-year-old mythical beast filmed in Canadian wilderness.
Huh.
And it says, 13-year-old. Why does this look like it's? Maybe it was first. What's this?
The beast is 13 years old, or what do you mean?
Well, the 13-year-old mythical beast. I think it's the story's 13-year-old. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But it says, was an unknown humanoid creature spotted stalking a moose somewhere in Quebec on a or is this a shaky video, another poor quality internet hoax?
Internet hoax.
That's what I meant.
Internet hoax.
What appears as a 6-foot faceless, hitherunto unrecorded human-like creature was filmed stalking a moose, and sensationalist publications are claiming the video has sparked worldwide panic as the identity of the beast baffles millions of viewers after going viral on the internet. Filmed by a local resident, the beast appears to be lurking behind a feeding moose in an isolated Canadian wilderness, and this classically badly focused video shows a faint, pale, human-sized figure moving behind the moose. Wow. Many viewers have speculated that it appears to walk on its hind legs like a human, and could it be the legendary Rake monster?
Oh.
Comparable to Bigfoot and Yeti, according to the Express. Sightings of the Canadian Rake. The legendary Rake was described as a brutal, savage humanoid creature with canine characteristics, although it has never savaged any human, never mind brutally. Many claiming it attacks without provocation, is using its long, blade-like fingers to pull its victims apart.
Oh.
And there you go. That's the end of that. It goes, oh, wait, no.
There's more.
The video has been viewed more than 102,000 times, which is probably... That's not viral, but I'm sure it's got more than that now. And social media viewers have provided a host of possible explanations for the sighting, responding to the filmmaker's question, looking at the video, I saw a strange shape at the back left. Can someone tell me what it is? In response, one commenter wrote, that looks like the Rake type character stalking the moose. But skeptics, however, claim that it was footage The footage was misleading and suggested that the creature was no more than a speck on the car window. But this does not argue why the creature apparently moves in the footage. Um, it's a speck of reality. In my 20s, I studied photography and video communications at the college. Um, since I've conducted numerous photography exhibitions and have filled hundreds of hours of documentary video footage. On many occasions, I have discovered my own rake monsters in that such appearances are caused by well understood occurrences which photographers know about. A tiny speck of dust on the lens can sometimes appear to take on monster proportions, and what it is more and what it is. A tiny speck of dust lens can appear in monster proportions because they are sometimes so close to the lens, moving the camera as much as a few millimeters causes the speck to appear to move several feet on video footage. A good way to recreate the effect is to hold your finger up against your nose in your living room. Now close one eye and look at the finger. So he's saying,
Sure.
spot your fingertip.
Oh,
It's the way you find out which dominant eye you have.
Mm-hmm.
Now close one eye and look at the finger. When your finger moves a few millimeters, notice how it covers and reveals what appears to be several feet against the wall. The effect is also apparent so basically this guy's saying it could be a speck, but and we've talked about it before. A swinging cobweb near the lens of the camera causes a motion movement. That may look like it's only a millimeter or two, but it's actually, when it's seen, it looks like it's moving a good ways, a few feet or so. So that was him possibly trying to debunk this, but the description of the creature was just amazing. Let me get back up to there. Yeah, classically bad. Okay, pale human-sized figure moving behind the moose. Now a moose can be huge depending on how old they are. I've seen 9 foot at the top, the top of the head moose.
Wow.
They're huge. But they're big enough that you have a scale. You could honestly say, well, that's human size compared to whatever it may be. It would be reasonable to make that assumption.
Sure.
It appears to walk on hind legs like a human. So interesting. And that was up in Quebec.
Quebec. The Quebecans say Quebec, not Quebec.
Whatever.
Just saying. I'm just saying.
I speak American English, which is to say bad English.
Yes. All right. I'm going to read a rake story. I don't know if it's any good or not. I don't know if it's any kind of credibility or not. But I found it, so it's, when you find rake stories, you kind of got to read whatever you can find because there's so few of them out there. So I'm going to read it to you. I hope it's good. So here I am in 2015, and it's the weekend, and I haven't really mentioned that thing with my brother. A couple days before this incident, I heard of this rake thing, and I believed that what my brother saw was a rake. So apparently there's another story going around with this, but I don't know where that is. And I could care less about it, but now it's 2015, and I need to get over it. So I'm not supposed to be on my PS3, but I'm on it anyway. So while I'm playing, I had to check now and then if my dad pulled up in the driveway. So when I check, I see nothing, but something's not right. At the corner of my eye, I notice something at the end of the driveway, and I see this hairless dog moving slowly, turning its head to me, so I immediately stopped looking. Then when I looked back, I couldn't believe my eyes, and it was gone. I went to go tell the only person with me in the house, my brother, my older brother, but not the one that saw the creature before, and I told him I saw a demon, but I slowly realized that the creature was the rake. Now, the interesting thing is that the rake is often observed kind of cantering along. If any of you guys have seen the Harry Potter The one, let's see, it's the Prisoner of Azkaban, and they're dealing with the werewolf in the forest. It's kind of looks like a naked, like hairless
Right.
thing, and it's Professor Lupin or whatever.
Right.
But that really is how most people describe the rake, without the extended canted nose and without the ears.
Right.
But that kind of figure is what most people report the rake to be, and I find that interesting. I don't know. I don't know, but they're often seen down on all fours like that, like that figure in the Prisoner of Azkaban. So I thought that was interesting. That's a real quick story, but there's actually another one under it. It says, I've dealt with the same issue, but I saw it. It looked me right in the eyes. No one was home at the time, and I will start off by describing myself. I am 13 when my experience happened, and I have dealt with spirits and demons before. 2 demons and 5 spirits to be exact. Wow.
Wow.
I guess this person's been through it all. I've suffered from depression and loneliness my whole life, and I have this phase of my life every year where I have sleep issues. I wake up around 3 a.m. and pass back out, or don't at all for that matter, and it all started by me waking up and feeling drained of energy and extremely dehydrated, so I decide to get a drink. And I have the option of water or ginger ale, and I choose the ginger ale. I don't know why we're going into this part of the story, but me being my soda craving teenager, I grab a glass, pour it in, and put it away. I had a weird feeling, but I just ignored it. I walked into my living room and I sat down on the coffee table in the middle of the room, and I wanted to turn the PlayStation 3 so I could watch some YouTube, but when I bent over, I had this feeling of absolute dread. I looked on the window, which was perfectly aligned with the PlayStation whilst turning it on, and then I see this thing. It had yellow bulging. It had yellow bulging. That's all it says. This thing looks like a creepy pasta called the Rake. Sure, creepy pastas are fake, but it looked identical. It moved from the window as soon as our eyes met. I sat back down, falling on the table in a sitting position, really. I was paralyzed for what felt like hours. At some point, not keeping track of the time, I was too scared to be able to do that. I built up the courage to move and go to the only lockable door and windows in the house. I couldn't sleep for a week. I passed out of being overtired at points, but I wasn't willing. Every night, I can't open my window. My room keeps in so much heat, it wakes me up randomly. It's possible. I don't know why they think that rakes are a creepy pasta thing. They didn't come into existence because creepy pasta. But again, I guess the Slender Man is not necessarily based in fact, but I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah. The thing is, though, is as with Slender Man, we know that Slender Man was pretty much an internet done thing, but it had to be based on something. Let's call it Shadow People or Hat Man, something like that. People only know what the good old internet tells them anymore.
Yeah, and that's really pretty true actually. There's a lot of misinformation going on, especially about the paranormal on the internet. Um, it's one of the reasons that inspired me to do the show was, being an enthusiast and reading, thousands of different things about the paranormal. I was just like, God, there's so much bad stuff out here, just flaky stuff. And maybe I shouldn't say that because it just sounds like I'm, coming from some kind of condescending space, but or being condescending towards those people that are writing stuff out there. But there's so many works of fiction on the internet in terms of the paranormal. I'm sure of it. Now, the Slender Man may have started as a hoaxy, gimmicky thing, but the problem is once people believe in something,
That changes their realities.
it does. It creates a reality. And so, I think that it may have started out innocently enough, but it seems to have some form of reality now. And That's absolutely disturbing as hell.
Well, it's all about how what affects your own psyche. It's is it scary enough to glom onto, to grab onto, and say, okay, this is scary. Now, does it write itself into pulp culture, and
Right.
does pulp culture feed into your belief system? The answer is, well, hell yeah.
Right. Yeah, it does. And
You know,
and,
so
and therefore, you know,
but there's nothing saying that there's nothing out there, shadow people, ghost apparitions, spirits, that don't say that they can't take the form of what people now know as the Slender Man.
hmm
They
well,
can
that's
be,
true.
you
There is
know,
that. Yeah. That there's a lot of mimics in the paranormal, and,
right.
and they can appear as whatever they want. It's, I'm going to do another Harry Potter reference, but wasn't it the Bogart where these things that would take on different appearances?
Right, the Bogarts, yeah.
Bogarts, yeah. And, it could be anything. So, and I think that's true for a lot of spiritual entities, or at least a lot of spiritual beings, or paranormal beings, that they can manifest however they choose. And you hear that a lot mentioned on the Dead Files. Amy Allen has said that many times too. And I think there's something to that she's absolutely right. That they can do that. I don't know. All right, so there's another one. Yeah, this one I hadn't read yet. I closed the other one. So here's the other one on the rake that I wanted to bring you guys before. Because, again, second story I found, but it says, during the summer of 2003, events in the northeastern United States involving a strange human-like creature sparked brief local interest before an apparent blackout was enacted. Little or no information was left intact, as most online and written accounts of the creature were mysteriously destroyed. Primarily focused on rural New York State and once found in Idaho, self-proclaimed witnesses told stories of their encounters with the creature of unknown origin. Emotions ranged from extremely traumatic levels of fright and discomfort to an almost childlike sense of playfulness and curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
While their published versions are no longer on record, the memories remain powerful, and several of the involved parties began looking for answers that year. In early 2006, the collaboration had accumulated nearly 24 documents dating between the 12th century and present day. Spanning 4 continents, in almost all cases, the stories were identical. I've been in contact with a member of this group and was able to get some excerpts from their upcoming book. And this one is this part is called A Suicide Note.
Mm.
As I prepared to take my life, I feel it necessary to assuage any guilt or pain I have introduced throughout this act, and it is not the fault of anyone other than him. For once I awoke and felt his presence, and once I awoke and saw his form, once again I awoke and heard his voice and looked into his eyes. I can't sleep without fear of what I might next awaken to experience. I cannot ever wake. Goodbye. Found in the same wooden box were 2 empty envelopes addressed to William and Rose, and 1 loose personal letter with no envelope. Dearest Lenny, I've prayed for you all. He spoke your name. A journal entry translated from Spanish in 1880. I've experienced the greatest terror. I have experienced the greatest terror. I have experienced the greatest terror. It says it 3 times. And I see his eyes when I close mine. They are hollow, black. They saw me and pierced me. His wet hand, I will not sleep. His voice, and then some unintelligible text. A mariner's log in 1691. He came to me in my sleep. From the foot of my bed, I had a sensation. He took everything. We must return to England. We shall not return here again at the request of the rake. That's from apparently 1691. From somebody in 2006. 3 years ago, I had just returned from a trip to Niagara Falls with my family for the 4th of July, and we were all very exhausted after a long day of driving, so my husband and I put the kids right to bed and called it a night. About 4 a.m., I woke up thinking my husband had gotten up to use the restroom. I used the moment to steal back the sheets, only to wake him in the process. I apologized and told him I thought he got out of the bed. When he turned to face me, he gasped and pulled his feet up from the end of the bed so quickly, his knee almost knocked me out of the bed. He then grabbed me and said nothing. After adjusting to the dark for half a second, I was able to see what caused that strange reaction. At the foot of the bed, sitting and facing away from us, there was what appeared to be a naked man or a large hairless dog of some sort. Its body position was disturbing and unnatural, and as if it had been hit by a car or something. For some reason, I was not instantly frightened of it, but more concerned as to its condition. And at this point, I was somewhat under the assumption we were supposed to help him. My husband was peering over his arm and knee, tucked into the fetal position, occasionally glancing at me before returning to the creature. In a flurry of motion, the creature scrambled around the side of the bed and then crawled quickly, in a flailing sort of motion, right along the bed until it was less than a foot from my husband's face. The creature was completely silent for about 30 seconds, or probably closer to 5. It just seemed like a while, just looking at my husband. The creature then placed his hand on his knee and ran into the hallway leading to the kids. And I screamed and ran for the light switch, planning to stop him before he hurt my children. When I got to the hallway, the light from the bedroom was enough to see it, crouched and hunching over about 20 feet away. He turned around and looked directly at me, covered in blood. I flipped the switch on the wall and saw my daughter Clara. The creature ran down the stairs while my husband and I rushed to help our daughter. She was very badly injured and spoke only once more in her short life. And I don't know if this is real. She said, "He is the rake." My husband drove his car into the lake that night and rushed our daughter to the hospital. They did not survive. Being in a small town, news got around pretty quickly, and the police were helpful at first. And the local newspaper took a lot of interest as well. However, the story was never published, and the local television news never followed up on it either. For several months, my son Justin and I stayed in a hotel near my parents' house. After we decided to return home, I began looking for answers myself, and I eventually located a man in the next town over who had a similar story. We got in contact and began talking about our experiences. He knew of 2 other people in New York who had seen the creature and now referred to as the rake. It took about 4 of us, about 2 solid years of hunting on the internet and writing letters, to come up with a small collection of what we believe to be accounts of the rake. None of them gave any details, history, or follow-up. One journal had an entry involving the creature in its first 3 pages and never mentioned it again. A ship's log explained that nothing of the encounter, saying only that they were told to leave by the rake. That was the last entry in the log. There were, however, many instances where the creature visit was one of a series of visits with the same person. Multiple people also mentioned being spoken to, my daughter included. This led us to wonder if the rake had visited any of us before our last encounter. I sure hope this isn't a real thing. Good God. Eesh. I set up a digital recorder near my bed and left it running all night, every night for 2 weeks. I would tediously scan through the sounds of me rolling around in the bed each day when I awoke, and by the end of the 2nd week, I was quite used to the occasional sound of my sleep while blurring through the recording at 8 times the normal speed. This took almost an hour every day. On the first day of the 3rd week, I thought I heard something different. What I found was a shrill voice. It was the rake. I can't listen to it long enough to even begin to transcribe it. I haven't let anyone listen to it yet, so all I know is that I've heard it before, and I now believe that it spoke. And when it was sitting in front of my husband, I don't remember hearing anything at the time, but for some reason the voice on the recorder immediately brings back to that moment. The thoughts that must have gone through my daughter's head make me very upset. I've not seen the rake since he ruined my life, but I know that he has been in my room while I slept. I know and fear that one night I'll wake up to see him staring at me. I don't know. That's crazy.
I don't know. Yeah, that's one of those stories that just begs believability.
Right. I mean, it's really drawing a supernatural quality on what I think, what I've come to understand is just but is just a cryptid.
Right.
This is bringing a supernatural aspect of its to, almost like a interdimensional entity kind of way. And I don't know. I don't know what to think about that. Now, I will say that when Shell saw it, she saw it on the roof of was it a neighbor's house?
Right.
And then it became aware of her and then like came at her, and she fled.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I can totally understand. I don't know, ladies and gentlemen. These are the weird things about the paranormal, and it's sometimes hard to separate legend from lore and fantasy from reality. And I don't know. I mean, maybe the truth is somewhere in between all of that. I don't know. It does sound like a horrible thing, and I you got to wonder though if it's truly buck naked and it's got no hair. How in the hell is it not freezing to death? I mean,
Yeah, well.
I mean, really, can you think of anything else that's hairless and can live in winter areas? I mean, it's totally not a natural thing. I mean, which I guess would make it supernatural if indeed that is the case. But I don't know if they migrate or if they, what the deal is. Maybe they are some kind of interdimensional, weird, malevolent being. I don't know. I just, there's so much about the paranormal that just really struggles. It really forces you to stretch your imagination all the way to its limit,
Right.
to try to bring some kind of reason to it. But maybe there isn't any. Maybe there's no reason to apply to it because it defies reason.
Well, and that's a lot of the skepticism is because it defies reason, it defies explanation. There's no empirical evidence, which is see, hear, smell, touch, taste.
Right.
There's no empirical evidence to it. But then again, when you're talking about a cryptid, though, I go back to, it's more believable. But
Right.
I feel the rake is a little less believable.
It is tough. I mean, it's tough. I have a hard time understanding it as well. And
Sorry, go ahead.
but I don't know. I guess I have a hard time. I can't say I don't believe it, but it's one of those things that I struggle to quantify in any way that makes sense to me. I know that people have seen it. I know, we heard from Shell, who is the only person that I am aware of firsthand that's witnessed such a thing, and I believe her. It's just I don't know what it means. I don't know what that means. What is this thing? Is it a spiritual thing and not at all tangible in reality, or is it completely something else?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It really needs more credibility. It needs more,
Yeah.
than just what seems to be a flight of fancy sometimes. And it's just one of those hard to believe ones for me.
It is. I agree. I agree, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what you guys think, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. If you have any idea of what you believe to be the truth about such things as the rake and all of the things we're discussing tonight, I would love to hear your thoughts. But again, I do want to make sure and remind you that this Friday night I'll be doing a listener emails segment and probably a big part of the show. So if you haven't emailed but would like to call in during Friday's show, please do. Again, 7 days a week at 7 p.m. Pacific time, there's a portal going on. It's just one of those things, unless I forget and get busy, which has only happened once, but it has happened. I don't know. We got about 5 minutes left on. What do you got?
Not a whole lot, but I would like to go back to talking about the community and the culture of cryptids and how we get along with each other, and how we really need to, and it's been said by many people, that we need to get together and have a conversation and quantify things, and get terms and present arguments and rebuttals. We need to do it that way. We need to stop, these people just outright, pointing fingers and making accusations. And that goes for not just the cryptid world, but it goes for the paranormal world. It goes for, all the things we talk about, whether it be, religion, because we do occasionally talk about religions, spirituality, spiritual beliefs more than religions. Let me say it that way, because we do talk about, crystals and ways to protect ourselves, and salt circles. We talk about the Ouija board and how it's a portal to whatever that may be. It could be spiritual, it could be ghosts, vampires, whatever. I mean, there's just so many things that are attached. And we just need to really come to a conclusion and say, let's debate this, let's talk about it, let's have a discussion, and let's all get on the same page and stop stabbing each other in the back. Soapbox, bong, 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 bong.
Hey, you deserve to have one too. I mean, you don't usually speak like that. Hey, Stacy, good to see you. Good to see you. I'm just looking at
regular D's here.
34 people up in here watching the portal.
It's a party.
It's a portal party, not a porta potty.
Oh,
portal party.
Goodness. Oh, gracious.
Thank you very much.
Oh, Duke's here too. Say hi to Duke.
Hi, Duke. Good to see you, Duke. Thanks for stopping in. I am excited for you to appear on our Saturday show. And ladies and gentlemen, Duke is in the chat room. He is present and accounted for. So we can quit looking. He's here. So I don't know. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't know so much about all of this. And I'm certainly no expert. I'm an enthusiast. Don is the same. I mean, we're both just looking for understanding, but we are absolutely compelled to do our best to bring you the best shows we can,
right, absolutely,
and to bring you the best information we can. Unfortunately, sometimes it's just not that easy to do, and sometimes we got to jump out on limbs and take a look at things differently. And I know that sometimes we've heard backlash from people. Very rarely. Most of you guys have been so wonderfully kind and supportive. And just know that whatever we bring to you on the show, we're trying to bring you thoughts and ideas and perspectives and considerations, because we're all kind of looking into this stuff together.
Right.
And the portal has always been about being a discussion. Now, I can't tell you if everything we've given you guys has been truth or not. I know there's some allegations out there about different individuals, and all I can tell you is that I want the portal to be a discussion, and an open discussion that we can all take part in,
right,
and bring people on that have great insights and great information. And if it applies to you, great. If it doesn't, discard it. We're not telling you have to believe one thing or the other. We're just trying to bring you the whole picture and let you decide what your paradigm is.
Right.
So I hope you guys understand, and I hope you guys are always supportive of that, and you guys have been amazing. I couldn't ask for a better group of listeners in all of the world. I mean, if I had the opportunity to choose between having a amazing core audience of people that were supportive and standing behind what we're doing here, or being wildly popular to millions of people that were maybe partially interested, I would pick the core audience every time, because this has become a family. This has become a community of people looking out for each other and sharing ideas, sharing our dreams together. And I'm absolutely honored to be a part of this with you guys. And thank you so much for all that you guys have brought to the show. Again, Friday night will be and kind of an open forum, but we'll be talking about listener emails. I hope to get a bunch of you guys calling in. Tell me what you're thinking. Tell me what you've experienced. I love it when you guys call in on those open forum shows and participate, because just me talking into a microphone is it's fine, and I'll do the best I can to fill it with all the noise I'm capable of. But when you guys call in and we have a discussion, it just becomes really cool for me.
And that's part of what I was talking about, is we make it a discussion. We don't make it about pointing fingers or telling somebody they're hoaxing or faking or lying, flat out lying. It's the discussion. That's what we're here for.
And quite honestly, guys, thank you. I'm glad you did. Yeah. Oh, I thought Diana said she sent one, but yeah. Send your email to paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. Don't send your email to paranormalportalradio.com. Diana. It's paranormalportalradio@gmail.com.
I do the same thing, Diana.
I know, we all do, and I do it myself sometimes. But, I'd love to hear what you guys have for stories and stuff. Please, submit them. And again, Friday night, the call-in board will be open. So if you've got something you want to share or some thoughts that have been on your mind about the Paranormal Portal or paranormal in general, call in. I'd love to hear from you guys. But
yeah, absolutely.
That about wraps up our journey tonight, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed the journey, and I hope you've enjoyed the discussion. Thanks for letting us get up on our soapboxes and preach a little bit. We don't do that often on the show, but I think it's just things that need to be mentioned and things that need to be reminded,
Right.
Because the show isn't meant to be the beginning and end of all things paranormal. It's just our group discussion,
Right.
and
Yep.
so we're all in it together. But I love you all. Don, anything in closing?
Love you. Thanks for being here. We'll look forward to seeing you. I'll see you on Saturday night, but I'm sure some of you will be here again tomorrow with Mr. Brent as he presents his bedtime stories from beyond.
It's true. I'm going to be here. So
Sweet.
love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. And I'll be back tomorrow night
Good night.
for the bedtime stories from beyond. So you guys have a wonderful night, and I'll see you tomorrow.
My bottle's empty.
Oh, that's such a sad thing. You poor man.
I know where you were going with that. Good night, everyone.
Good night.